Welcome to the show, sports fans. This is the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, your weekly, mostly weekly, District 3 breakdown. Brandon Baney joined by Logan Green. Logan, what's going on?
Yeah, just like you said, missed last week. Just kind of a busy, crazy week, right?
I mean, yeah, so fans might be wondering, hey, where the heck were you guys at last week? You're slacking off, I'm sure. Well, we were putting together the broadcast for the Tiger Grizz Cross Country Invitational that was held at Freeman Park in Idaho Falls, and there was a lot of moving pieces to that. It took a lot of time to figure out how we were going to try and broadcast that, and we basically were both, I guess we could have done one Friday from Freeman Park in Idaho Falls.
We should have. Yeah, I guess we could have done a live session right there outside by the race.
Right, for sure. So
yeah, I was at that field from 8:30 to 5 roughly, and then ran over and did another game, and you ran back and did a game. So it was busy.
Yeah, our Friday was chaotic, and then the lead up to Friday, we got busy. But we're back and better than ever. Let's start the conversation with the Tiger Grizz invite, because even though it's an East Idaho event, there's always a couple of Treasure Valley schools that could go over and compete. Nampa Christian's done it in the past. Hawaii was there. Rocky Mountain has kind of made it a thing to come over and compete. Yeah. And that's really what the story is in terms of the Treasure Valley. The Rocky Mountain boys go over and win the competition with a total of 30 points, Logan. That's unheard of in cross country. That's an insanely low score.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the middle of the course, right, the whole time, on a truck bed with a camera. And as you saw people coming, it was just a wave of purple together, right? They completely dominated that race. And they came from almost the furthest away, because I think technically Hawaii was there, and technically they are probably 4 miles further away to the west. But yeah, it's rough. They came the furthest, right? At the end of the day, the furthest team that had to comes out and just completely dominates on the course.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where Rocky Mountain finished, they obviously had the individual champion in Landon Heemeyer, the junior. He ran a time of 16 minutes, 10.1 seconds, which was awesome. Rocky Mountain also had the second place finisher in Tyler Sainsbury, the fourth place finisher in Hunter Hill, the fifth place finisher in Keith Utawilligan. So 4 of the top 5 placers individually were from Rocky Mountain. Then you had Cody Lucas. He took 18th overall. Hiram Taft finished 20th overall, and Sam Jensen finished 28th. So that is 7 in the top 30, 4 in the top 5. No wonder they ran away with the title.
Yeah, and it's impressive, because it's not something that gets talked about, but it's 2 different states, right? The Treasure Valley and Eastern Idaho are very different. You talk about especially the elevation. Treasure Valley is around 2,300 roughly. You get over to Idaho Falls, you're talking, I don't know what, 4,800, 49, something like that, pushing 5,000 feet in Eastern Idaho. So it does make a difference. I mean, you're doubling your elevation that you're going up. And so maybe they say it doesn't make a difference, but at least I feel like it would for me at that. And that course, very not flat. It is not flat at all. Tons of hills and dips and divots and things like that. And like, from my point of view, was watching them come down a hill, and then they would go down another one, and then up, and then back down and up another one. And just to do that at that increased elevation, quote, on their home turf, right? So on the girls' side, we saw Skyline kind of, their phenomenal runner. She just blew away with it. But they went over to where kids are used to running in that elevation, if not higher, right? You get some of those schools that are even up even higher. So they're coming down and making it a little easier, right? And they just stole it from, quote, the home schools.
Yeah, that was a true road win for Rocky Mountain. And so we brought on Landon Heemeyer after the race for a little post-race interview. And I talked to him and asked him, kind of like, what are the goals that, you and your teammates have set this year? And he said, well, obviously we want to go win state. But he said, honestly, our biggest goal is we want to qualify for nationals. and go to the national competition. So like the high school season wraps up mid-October. The regional competition is then in like mid-November, and from there then nationals is held. And I think Rocky's got a really good chance. Now regionally they're going to compete against, Oregon, Washington always have great runners, but Heemeyer was upfront about it. He said, look, we want to go to nationals, which would be so awesome for Rocky Mountain.
Yeah, and I mean, it's crazy. You look at them, I think they got a shot at it because you see some people win a race and they come in and they just are just completely done, right? And that's how I would be. I mean, after about the first stretch, I think I'd just be killed over. But some of those Rocky guys just came across like they had just, took a casual stroll in the park, so it seems like they've got the endurance to do that. And, if they are able to go and make it to nationals, they wouldn't be, in rare company, right? We've got another team from the Treasure Valley that's looking to do the same thing.
Yeah, the Boise girls, right?
Right.
And so during the broadcast we talked about kind of the top 10 times for the field coming in, and on the girls' side, like 6 of the top 10 times overall belong to Rocky Mountain. And so on the broadcast, I said, so fans in East Idaho that don't necessarily pay attention to the Treasure Valley too much are going to look at this and go, wow, Rocky Mountain must be really good. Like they're probably winning 5A titles all the time. And the answer is no, they're not, because Boise is so dominant.
Yeah. And it's just, you've got you've got that big brother or big sister that's always there kind of hounding you. Doesn't matter how well you do, if you've got somebody that's even better out there.
Yeah, and you can't talk about Boise High cross country without also talking about Boise High girls soccer, because the past couple of years they've had a couple of girls do both sports, particularly the Smith sisters, Logan Smith, who's now at Stanford playing soccer, and then her younger sister, Sammy Smith, doing the double dip. And of course, the Boise girls soccer team. We'll dive into soccer talk now and kind of take a look. We're kind of at the midway point of the season. For soccer. So just kind of give a snapshot of where everything stands. P.S. Or spoiler alert, Boise girls, really good. They're 8-0 overall, 7-0 in conference play, and they just won again last night. We're recording this on Thursday morning. They won last night. They beat Mountain View 4-0. It was a 1-0 game at halftime. Mountain View actually has a really good goalkeeper, Jada Ojokwu. And they only got 1 goal against her in the first half, but then, CUNY Hirai scores twice in the final 5 minutes to kind of pull it away. 4-0 win for the Brave. They played Rocky Mountain back in the season opener on August 20th. It was a non-conference game. The rematch takes place Monday, September 26th. So we'll have to break down that matchup when it happens, because that will be the game that actually counts in the conference standings. But right now it is Boise 1, 7-0 in conference. Rocky 2nd, 8-3 overall, but 7-1 in league, where it counts the most. And then there's a small drop off after that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a huge clump of teams, right? Kind of right in the middle that, you've got, like you mentioned, Boise, Rocky, and Hawaii has 1 loss, 2 ties. But then you get in there, Centennial, Eagle, Timberline, Mountain View, and even Middleton you can put into that conversation, are just all kind of in this clump. And so everybody's trying to chase those at the top and see, if they can claw their way up. And it'll be fun to see how districts shake out with these people and, or these teams, excuse me. Some of these games have been close. Like there was a 1-goal game between Boise and Eagle early on. The Middleton Boise game was only 3-1. And so you had some close games in there for some teams that maybe think that, I just give me another chance at them, right? And they're going to get that other chance in a couple of weeks at the state or at the district tournament. I think the 5A girls district soccer tournament it'll be great. It'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you right now who the 4 representatives from District 6 will be, and then I think they get a half bid as well for that.
It's like you say Boise's going to get one of them, most likely, right?
Right,
and then outside of that, you say Rocky, probably. But you could see Hawaii, you could see Centennial, Eagle, Timberline. Can a Middleton or a Bora sneak in? It's just, who knows? Seems like a lot of people have beaten a lot of different people. There's a lot of parity in the league right now.
I mean, I'm looking at the standings, and the reason why we're having a hard time diagnosing, where everybody truly stands is there's been 14 draws in SIC play this year.
Yeah.
14 draw. Hawaii's had 2 draws. Centennial has had a draw. Eagles had a draw. Timberline's had 3. They're 3-1 and 3 in conference play. Mountain View and Middleton have each had 2. Cuna's had 2. Boris had 1. I mean, that glut of teams in the middle, they've all tied with each other.
Yeah, and somebody's going to have to win those games at district, right? And so they're not going to end in a tie. Well, they'll end in a tie, but they won't finish like that. But so we'll see how it goes at district, because those have got to go one way or another. I love how the NHL kind of got rid of that, right? In regular season, no more ties. Everybody wins, and so I think you kind of start to you see some separation, right, when that happens, and we're going to get it at district. We're going to see where that separation occurs, and like you said, I mean, 3 ties for Timberline. They only have 1 loss on the season, but in conference, and 3 ties. Could they be up there with the Boise if they just knock those off, some of those ties? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we'll find out, because next week, the Timberline Wolves will play Rocky Mountain on Wednesday, and then the following week they'll play Boise. So they'll play Rocky next Wednesday, a week off, and then Boise the following Wednesday. So we'll find out, where Timberline sits.
There's their chance to prove themselves.
That's right.
On that. But even I'm just looking, and it's just, I'm looking at different team pages, and they're just like, they beat each other or they tie somebody better than them. And it's a mess. And I mean, it's a fun mess, right? It's a fun mess to have.
That's right. A friendly reminder: we've got the scores and schedules for every team, not just in the Treasure Valley, not just in soccer, but volleyball, football as well, all on our page, IdahoSports.com. That's really the lifeblood of what we do at IdahoSports.com: scores and schedules. And those are possible only because of our great sponsors. We call them power boosters. Basically, if you're a local business and you want to support your local school, you get a little banner, not a little banner, but you get a banner on your specific school. So like, I'm looking at Bishop Kelly right now for girls soccer, because that's what we're going to talk about next. And they've got 3 power boosters on the Bishop Kelly page, where it's your business, all the pertinent info. It's a great way to help support your favorite schools, but it's also a great way to support what we're doing at IdahoSports.com. I mean, we don't have all the scores. There's a couple we're missing, but we are by far the most accurate place to get all of the scores and schedule information on the internet. So
yeah, people texting coaches, texting ADs, trying to get that information rather than just grabbing it from somewhere else. But it's validated, it's real. So I can't beat it. And like you said, you mentioned like the power boosters on like Bishop Kelly. Like, again, if you are interested in that, like, we'd love to have you. It just helps us be able to provide this coverage for the kids. Like, we can't do it without those businesses. So if you want to do it, just email me. It's Logan at IdahoSports.com. I guarantee you it's cheaper than what other advertising avenues your business is doing right now. And you get a great return on it. You support local sports. I know I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but you support local sports. You support an Idaho business right here. Your money stays right here in Idaho, and it helps get your name out there in an area very targeted, right? Because like, if you're in a town like a Parma or a Fruitland or whatever it is, you have your thing right there. You're going to get people that are looking at Fruitland information. And so you're directly targeting your Fruitland audience. So it's just a great way to get out there, show your support, and also get a return on that support.
Definitely. And so when we're talking about team pages, we're looking at all the info, and that's where it is, the scores and schedules part of IdahoSports.com. So I mentioned Bishop Kelly girls. The 4A SIC standings a little more clear cut, right? BK leading the way with a perfect record in conference action. The Knights are 6-0 in league play, 6-1 and 1 overall. They've lost to Centennial 1-0, and then they tied Hawaii 1-1. Those are non-conference matchups. Valley View is the closest Bless you, by the way. The Falcons are 5-1 in league, 5-3 overall. They played once already back on August 25th. BK won that matchup 4-0. The rematch comes next Tuesday, September 20th. This is Valley View's chance to possibly tie the Knights at the top.
Yeah, and this conference looks, and we mentioned it in regards to football, it just looks so different this year, right? You add in Skyview, which the volleyball teams hate, but then you lose a Middleton, you lose Nampa, who are always kind of in the mix. Middleton qualified for state the last couple of years in girls soccer, and now they're gone, and so now you have this this new opportunity, and Valley View has a good chance to punch that, like you said, to tie them up. They lost that 4-0. I'm sure they'd love to scrub that from their memory and redo it here at the second time. But those two really look like they're in charge of the conference right now.
Definitely. And then in 3A girls soccer, I've never seen a reigning state champion get so little buzz than the Fruitland girls this year. I mean, all they have done is put up a 5-1 record. They're 3-0 in the Snake River Valley Conference. Their only loss came to Pendleton, Oregon, 3-2. I mean, and it's the same thing we saw last year, Logan. They're winning 14-0, 12-0, 12-0, 11-1. Abby Rubido's lighting up the nets again for the Grizzlies, and nobody's talking about it.
And look at last year, right? They only had one non-victory on their schedule, which was a tie against LeGrand, so another Oregon school, and they just blew through everybody. Really the one test came in that state championship game against Sun Valley, and they trailed in that game, came back and went it 4-3. But like you said, just where's the buzz? I mean, they're blowing teams out again, and
I mean,
nobody beat them last year. Nobody's beating them this year. You got to think, it's theirs, right? Until somebody knocks them off, it should be theirs.
And I guess we fall into this as well, right? This is the first time in some time we're bringing up Fruitland girls soccer. But we do the coaches polls every week, and they're just ranked third, ranked second. I'm like, they should be the number one team. They're the defending champions. They're so good. I'm looking at the stats right now. Abby Rubidoux has scored 38 goals, Logan. 38 goals in 6 contests? 7? I mean, this is just insane.
Because they beat Emmett 11-1, Payette 14-0, Weiser 12-0. And then they had McCall Donnelly is probably their best test, and it was 2-0, right? And then they beat Payette 12-0 again, and they're just, yeah. I mean, it's going to be tough if they're going to score goals no matter what. You're not going to shut them out, and so you're going to have to put up 2 or 3 goals just to beat them. And I think that's the key factor: is that are they beatable? And I think everybody is. But you have to be able to score goals to beat Fruitland because they are going to score. And so you saw Sun Valley last year, it was 4-3. That was the final in that state championship. Sun Valley puts up 3 goals. How many times did somebody put up 3 goals on Fruitland last year? I mean, I'll just take a look really quick. Twice.
Yeah.
They tied LeGrand, and then McCall put up 3. And then the championship. And those were their 3 closest games. Those were the 3 closest games when teams scored over 3 goals. It was a 7-3 win against McCall Donnelly, a tie, and then that state championship. You got to put up at least 3 on Fruitland if you're going to win, and that's that's just not a given on every night. And so it's going to be tough for anybody to beat them right now.
Yeah, so Abby Rubidoux is averaging about 6 goals a game, which is nuts. And then Madeline Hardy in goal has only allowed 4 goals, period, all year. That's a winning formula, certainly, for the Fruitland girls. So we definitely wanted to give them a shout out because I feel like literally nobody else is talking about that. And it's crazy to me. They're the defending champs, and it's like, what do we got to do to get some respect around here? Let's switch over to boys soccer. Let's keep it at the 3A level where to me, McCall Donnelly looks pretty good, and they've been a really strong program. I mean, the last couple of years, it's really been Weiser and McCall Donnelly, and they've kind of been the big two, and that's kind of shaping up to be that way again. Weezer's 3-0 in league play. McCall Donnelly is 2-0-1. So technically Weezer leading the conference race, but overall records, Weezer just 4-3. The Vandals 6-0-1. Right now, the one hangnail on McCall Donnelly's resume is they tied Fruitland on Tuesday night 0-0.
Yeah, and then a Fruitland team on the boys' side that has struggled a little bit, right? They lost to Payette, they lost to Weezer a couple weeks ago, but then able to get that tie. So a little parity there, and of course, those two teams are going to play today. Actually, if you're listening to it today, Weezer going to face off against McCall Donnelly, and this is going to tell us a story, right? Is this those two teams have really just battled it out for who's going to win this conference, and we're gonna find out today at who has at least step one the leg up.
That's right. Weezer will host it on Thursday, September 15th, and then they will meet again in the regular season finale on Thursday, October 6th in McCall. The Vandals, they've put together a rigorous schedule. They went up north early on in the season to play Timberlake and Coeur d'Alene Charter, kind of the two best teams up north. They won both of those matches 5-3 and 4-1. They beat the Lewiston JV 9-3, and I get it, it's a JV, but it's a 5A JV team. They won that 9-3. So yeah, the Vandals I think look really, really good. 4A soccer. Let's move to the 4A boys. Bishop Kelly is your defending 4A state champs, but it's Caldwell. They're 9-0 overall, 6-0 in the conference. And the Cougars, we talked about a couple weeks ago, their football program basically saying we're not going to be a member of the conference. We're going to be an independent because we don't have the numbers. This is why their boys soccer program is so good that they're not stealing, but they're grabbing a lot of those athletes that might otherwise play football.
Yeah, and I think I saw somewhere that they had like a second JV team, possibly at Caldwell. And just think about that. They have to have more soccer teams because that's where the interest lies right now. Is it, you see your team winning so much, you want to be, winning's contagious, right? They want to move over and say, you know what, I could play football and struggle through a season, or I could go win a state championship in soccer. If you have the skill set to play both, where are you going to go? You know what I mean? You're going to go where the success is. They have big wins. Like they beat Eagle 4-1. It's not like they're playing chumps. They went, Wood River came in and played them, and they beat them to open up the season. Just a good season for Caldwell. And this is not uncharted territory for them, right? Like they've won multiple state championships over the last couple of years. Bishop Kelly just got the best of them last year, but this is a program that is just, I feel like in 4A boys soccer, it's, you want to be a Caldwell. That's where you want to be.
Yeah, and we bring this up because they beat Bishop Kelly back on August 23rd, 2-0. The rematch comes tonight, Logan, as we're recording this. They will play in Caldwell, and so we will find out, can BK get the tie of the season series? Will it be Caldwell who comes out on top? Just a couple of the names for Caldwell that have been really impressive this year. Axel Gonzalez, the senior midfielder, his fingerprints, his toe prints, I guess, are all over pretty much every match. Fabian Arguello has been a really great sophomore. Sam Yeakley, of course. Reese Yeakley is the head coach, and Sam is the reigning conference player of the year. He's been really fun to watch this year as well. And then the backline defense, Israel Arizmendi has been fantastic. Their goalkeeper is Horacio Hernandez. There's just a lot of really good players for Caldwell. And so this is another team that's very quietly kind of flying under the radar a little bit. So
if you look at Caldwell's schedule as well, so, right, they had that win against Wood River. Now, if we jump over to Wood River, their only other loss is to Canyon Ridge, 1-0. Otherwise, they've run through their gauntlet. And so that's a good Wood River team. And, if you continue down the line, right, Canyon Ridge, their only loss is to a 5A Thunder Ridge, who's currently undefeated. So you can trail these things back, right, to saying Caldwell has a really good win on their schedule against Wood River, and they already have a really good win against Bishop Kelly. It's not like they haven't played anybody yet. They have played two very good teams and have won those games. And I think that bodes well for them in the future for the rest of the season.
Definitely. And then as we look at the 5A boys soccer standings in the SIC, there's really a big three, and it's kind of crazy that these teams haven't faced each other yet. But Timberline, and they are, of course, the toast of 5A boys soccer, right? They've been the premier program the past several years statewide. 11-0-1 overall, 8-0 in the conference. Rocky is 7-0-1 overall, 7-0 in the conference, and Boise is 8-0-1 and 6-0 in the conference. So you've got three undefeated teams at the top of the SIC standings. Timberline 8-0, Rocky 7-0, Boise 6-0, and you're thinking, boy, we're running out of room on the runway here. The plane's got to take off soon. When are these teams going to actually play?
Yeah.
It's all going to be over the next week.
Well, I think they have played, but they were non-conference games earlier in the year. So Boise played Rocky Mountain. It was a 2-2 ties, right? So there's
Right.
one of your ties, but it was a non-conference game, I believe.
Yes, it was. And
then I believe Timberline and Bora tied each other as well in a non-conference game. So the top four have non-conference danced with each other, and clearly there's no separation because they all tied each other. And so of course those they don't matter, in the conference standings, but we know that they do matter at the end of the day. So we'll see how that, if anything changes when they play each other in conference, but in that non-conference environment, there really wasn't much separation between those, even if we include Bora into that lump up, right? So you talked about the big three, but maybe we could have just squeezed Bora in there too.
Definitely. And Bora played Boise early on in the season and lost 4-0. That counted. That's their one conference loss. And then they played Timberline and Rocky towards the end of the year. And I guess it's really next week is when the big three all play each other. Timberline will play Rocky Saturday, September 24th. Then Timberline will play Boise on Tuesday, September 27th. And then Boise and Rocky will play on Timberline and Boise will play Thursday, September 29th. So boom, 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 all in a row next weekend / into the next part of the week. So we got to wait it out just a little bit longer before this three undefeated team race gets decided.
Yeah. Well, those three, it's like they all play each other next week, right? All three of them, they will play each other to some extent. And so should be fun to see how it shakes out between all of them.
Definitely. Let's wrap up quickly with some football talk. 5A SIC, Rocky Mountain 4-0, overall 1-0 in the Foothills division. Meridian is 3-0 overall. They're also 1-0 in the Foothills division. Mountain View, we talked about, they're 1-2, but their two losses are to Rocky and Meridian. They're 1-0 in their River division. You talked about it, Logan. You really thought the preseason coaches poll that we had at IdahoSports.com was going to be shaken up quite a bit. Like the actual standings wouldn't reflect the preseason. And we're seeing both Middleton, they're 0-2 in their Foothills division, but they're 2-2
with their gauntlet.
Yeah. They're 2-2 overall. And then Nampa is 2-0 in River division play and 2-1 overall. They're just fine.
That's a Nampa team. I have seen a lot of Nampa and a lot of Middleton the last couple of years. And Middleton beat Nampa earlier, a couple weeks ago. And so, Middleton, just like Mountain View, they're 0-2 in the conference right now. And over, their two losses altogether are to Rocky Mountain and Meridian, who there's not many teams that are going to beat them this year except for each other. I think you could throw Rigby in there. And I think those three are clear-cut the class of the 5A this year. Now, I don't know what you've seen. You've seen more of those Eastern Idaho teams this year. I don't know what your thought is on like a Highland or if anybody else is in that class. But my just from my point of view, I see it as it's Rocky, Meridian, Rigby, and then a step down from everybody. And there is when I look at the schedule right now, I see Middleton winning again. I think they have a great shot to win. You look at this, the Foothills division, Capital, Centennial, and Boise, or in Timberline, are all 0-3. Middleton has a great chance to finish third, right? And then they'll play in that cross game. And do they have a chance to make it to state in year one? I think them and Nampa might even both qualify, and they were both picked last. And when that was my whole thing. When coming in, I saw those two as last, and I said that's not happening. There's no way. And I think both teams have their troubles. I think Middleton struggles on the offensive side of the ball when they play a really good defensive team. Like we saw it, right? Meridian only gave up 7 points to them, and that was a late 7 points. Rocky Mountain only gave up 7 points. I think they're limited when they play a tough defense, but when they play a quote average team, they're going to be okay. And that's where I look at it. I think Middleton's going to be okay. I think Nampa's going to be okay. Of course, Nampa's got to go up against Eagle and Mountain View still, but I like their chances. But you throw into the mix now too, Hawaii. Where'd they come from? Right now, all of a sudden, you got to deal with them as being down last year, which people would expect, right? A first-year program, well, except for all their other sports that seem to just do phenomenal, right? But the football team struggled, which was to be expected. But did many people have this rise coming so quickly in year two? I don't know if I did, but they look really good as well.
Yeah, it's very clear that teams we were too low on in the preseason: Middleton, Nampa, Hawaii, and I would throw Kuna in there. Kuna is 3-1, and Cole Lukanga is the best quarterback that doesn't get much buzz. They just beat Bora in overtime on Saturday, 35-28. And then teams that we were too high on, teams that relative to preseason expectations just haven't had it. Bora, I think, is the biggest one. Every coach I talked to in the preseason said, watch out for Bora. They're going to be sneaky. They're 2-2 overall, but they're 0-2 in that river division, with losses to, as we said, Kuna, a team that we thought, they had a chance to beat. And then they lost to Nampa as well, which hurts them. So that's interesting for Bora. And then, Boise, we thought was going to take that next step. Maybe we were a little too high on them. And then Capital as well.
Yeah. I mean, like you look at Nampa's wins, they beat Bora and Boise both by double digits.
Yeah.
You look at that and you say, man, Nampa, they really held their ground. They really, they took it to them. And I like Nampa to make some noise right now. I think that, that side of it, you have Eagle and you have Mountain View, right? That are tough, but you don't have Meridian. You don't have Rocky. And that's just the way it is. That's the truth. I think that those two are the top. And, Nampa does have a good chance to make some noise here and maybe finish first, second. I think third. If they go any lower than third, that might be a disappointing turnout for Nampa at this point. But you look at their schedule, that Nampa-Kuna game, going to be a big game. Nampa-Owyhee, those are going to be some big matchups. There's just a bunch of big matchups over there. In terms of how that one's going to go, I feel like the other side of the division is really, you got your 1 and your 2, and I think Middleton will come in third, and that's kind of it. But down below, you got Eagle, Mountain View, Nampa, and Kuna that could all finish anywhere from 1 to 4 in there.
Definitely. So and
Owyhee, sorry. So 1 to 5. I just think you've got 5 really good teams in there. And it's unfortunate that somebody might get left out. But we'll see. We'll see.
That's what happened last year. Timberline missed out on the playoffs because they were in a stacked division, and they were better than, at least in my opinion, better than at least 2 of the teams that got in from the other division. But that's last year. So you mentioned the 2 big matchups. Hawaii at Eagle. We'll find out. Eagles 1 and 2, but they've had a very tough schedule. I kind of favor Eagle over Hawaii in that game. And then Kuna at Nampa, I think, is another really intriguing one. A game we're going to have on IdahoSports.com is going to be Bora at Mountain View. And can Bora get it turned around? Well, they're going up against the Mavericks. That's going to be a tough battle.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you came into the year and said, a lot of people thought that Bora team was going to be better, and what happened? And here's a chance to see them against a Mountain View, and can they turn it around? Can they get it going? Maybe they just started off sluggish. I don't know. And but a chance to listen to it here on IdahoSports.com and find out what we have to say about it live in real time, right?
That's right. You'll see you'll hear what it's all about on IdahoSports.com. Okay, let's move to the 4A ranks, and there's really not much to talk about here. To me, it's pretty clear. Bishop Kelly is head and shoulders above everybody else. They are undefeated on the season with several wins. I mean, they boat raced Centennial and Capital in back-to-back weeks. I mean, they're 3-0 overall, 1-0 in the conference. Emmett is lurking, right? Emmett has the horsepower to maybe hang with BK in a shootout. We're going to see Emmett on IdahoSports.com this Friday night as they take on Skyview. And again, Skyview coming in had a lot of preseason expectations. I think it was assumed that, well, they're a 5A and now they're moving to 4A and they're going to have more numbers than everybody else. They've got a really great quarterback and Max Cutforth, but it just hasn't happened. They're 0-4 and 0-1 in the league.
I think you're seeing right now that the middle of the pack, I would say take out the top 4 or 5 from 5A, and the rest of them, they are pretty in line with the 4A. The 4As are in line with, that's what I mean to say. The 4A is right there because you're seeing Middleton and Nampa move up, and what are they doing? They're holding their own. And you see a Skyview come down, and they're not. Even you go to the other side of the state, look at Idaho Falls. They moved down, and they're not winning either. And so you see this, and it's like I think the middle of the 5A and the 4, they're right there. And clearly, there's those top 5A schools that are just good, and they can win against anybody. But the rest of them, they're pretty similar. But like you said, Brandon, I think we're seeing the Bishop Kelly that we saw 5-6 years ago. Right now, we're seeing them just kind of roll through teams again. We thought we would see that a couple years ago, but then Emmett came out of nowhere and beats them at home or at Bishop Kelly, right? I think back in 2020, and nobody thought Emmett was going to do much, and then here they come. So I think they like playing with that chip on their shoulder. Emmett does, that they like kind of being the underdog and having that on them. And we'll see how it turns out if they're able to hang in there with them. It'll be interesting to see how that matches up. Emmett did pretty good. They still lost the game against Blackfoot, but so we know that they can compete with some of those top level 4A teams still. But that Bishop Kelly game, I think, will tell us. I think one of those two teams wins the conference, and it's going to come down to that game as to who wins it.
Now, the one caveat I will say with Bishop Kelly is we've seen this movie before where they just don't get challenged enough in the regular season. And that's not a knock on the other teams in the SIC, but they just don't. There's a real separation between the teams at the bottom and the teams near the top. And so we've seen this now the last several years where BK rolls through the regular season, or maybe there's a blip here or there, and everyone's like, oh yeah, BK, based on their history, based on their tradition, they're awesome. And it's been a really long time since BK played for a championship. It's easy to forget that. But so I always, in the back of my mind, I go, okay, BK's 3-0. The 3 teams they've played are a combined 0-9. I always reserve judgment a little bit.
And it's tough because, you can tell if you look at their schedule, right? They played Capital and Centennial to start, 2 5A schools, right? You would think, we're going to play up a level that, you got to think in their mind, this might be an equal test, but it wasn't. And then they've also scheduled Lake City for a game as well, so they're going to start off with 3 games against 5A schools, which is what they needed to do, but they're just catching 5A schools that aren't that good, unfortunately. Right. I mean, they have given up 6 points all year. That's it. That's all Bishop Kelly has given up. A 41-6 game against Capital, followed by 2 straight shutouts. And I think they're going to beat Lake City by multiple touchdowns as well. We saw Emmett do it last week. I don't think they're going to be – there's no resistance on their schedule, unfortunately. They do have a game. I like the matchup non-conference game against Burley at the end of September. That team can score some points. And so you're going to find out how is the Bishop Kelly defense. That Burley might struggle to stop people, but they can put them up, right? And Mike Leach, right? That type of offense. And they're a phenomenal offense at Burley. So I'm curious to see how that game will match up for Bishop Kelly in a couple weeks.
That will be very interesting as well. And speaking of Burley, I was on the call for Burley's game against Valley View, and I will tell you, I liked what I saw from Valley View. They've got a dynamic wingback in Tyson Fox, who is a great rusher straight ahead, and can really beat you on the edges. Valley View had every chance to win that game against Burley, and it just came down to basically their defense couldn't get a stop when they needed to, and they've been in some shootouts this year. If Valley View can tighten up the defense even just a little bit, I think they could be a sneaky team, and we saw it last year in the playoffs where they knocked out previously undefeated Minico. They've got such a good coach with Lane Coffin, and the other big key for Valley View always is depth. Their numbers are super low right now. Their margins for error are very thin. A big reason, a big key in that Burley game that I was on the call for was Tyson Fox had to leave midway through the fourth quarter with an injury, and he never came back. And that was a big factor for Valley View. So can the Falcons stay healthy? Can they tighten it up a little bit on defense? And I think they've got the makings of a really solid team as well. So just keep an eye on Valley View as well as they navigate through their schedule. 3A, I mean, it's Homedale and Weiser. They're both 3-0. Payette is off to a nice 3-1 start as well, with wins over Caldwell, Coal Valley Christian, and Marsing, and a 3-point loss to New Plymouth. I mean, they are 3 points away from a 4-0 start. And the Coal Valley team they beat is a team that's expected to win that conference. New Plymouth is a solid team, and Caldwell, of course, is a 4A.
Yeah, I think they're very much improved. And you look and you say, now you're getting into the meat of the schedule, right? And so we'll see how it ends up turning out for them as we go along. Of course, those conference games against, you hate to say it, but you can kind of just Homedale, Weiser, you can kind of just just count the loss now, and just say, you know what, we're gonna learn from that experience and say, you know what, well, we've got 3 other teams to deal with: McCall, Donnelly, Parma, and Fruitland. And you got to think they're going to get past Parma at this point and say, all right, we got 2 big games, McCall Donnelly and Fruitland. I think if you're Payette and you're McCall Donnelly and you're Fruitland, you look at that, all 3 of them, right? That's it for us. That's the carousel. These 3. If we can get the best, go 2-0, if we can beat these 2 teams, we have a great shot of making it to state. That puts us in a position. We don't know if we'll get it, but it puts us in that position. Because you got to think Weiser and Homedale are going to run through everybody except for each other.
And I guess I'm not with you on that. I think
you're not.
No, I think Homedale runs through everybody. Homedale looks so good. Yeah. I think the gap is closed between Weiser and everybody else. If you look at Weiser, they're 3-0. They've beaten a 2A program that's got 13 players out, Grangeville. Their numbers are super low. They had a nice shutout win over Buell. And then they beat LeGrand, Oregon, only 13-8. And that was a game kind of filled with turnovers and things like that. And I just look at the other teams, and then conversely, Fruitland is 0-3, but they easily are a handful of plays away from being 2-1. They had the lead until the final minute against Columbia and lost that game.
That's true, yeah.
And Kimberly is a high-octane juggernaut offense that had put up more than 500 yards of total offense in each of their first 2 games. Fruitland held them well below that and only lost 34-27. And even McCall Donnelly, I think, is very sneakily a dangerous team. They made the playoffs last year, and I think the Vandals still have something to say. They have beaten Wood River, which is a 3A team. It's a 4A team masquerading as a 3A team, and Napa Christian. So, I mean, I don't know.
I guess I look at Weiser, they beat Buell, who's a 3A team, but then Buell destroyed a 4A team in Mountain Home.
Not a good team, though.
It's not that great, but then they beat Declo too. And so that's a good Buell squad from what I've seen outside of it, and they really shut them down. I think that Weiser defense is really good from when I saw them play that opening week. And so maybe that gap maybe I didn't give Fruitland enough credit on there, so I apologize, Fruitland folks, between that gap between Weiser and Fruitland. But I personally think that it's going to be 1-2 Fruitland Homedale, or Homedale Weiser. but we'll see. I would love to be wrong, right? I love being wrong. I would love to be wrong, but I think if of those three, the Fruitland, Homedale, or Fruitland, McCall Donnelly, and Payette, if you can go 2-0 against the other ones, you're in. That's what I think. I think if you're Payette and you beat those two, if you're McCall Donnelly and you beat those two, or if you're Fruitland and you beat those two, that you're in. Even at a split, somebody's got to get in, right? There's 3 bids.
Well, we remember what happened last year. Those 3 teams all beat each other, and they had to go to a Kansas City playoff. So
I guess I shouldn't say that's because it's very realistic that. So I guess I'll say, but that harps back. If you can go 2-0, then it's probably yours. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If you can, it's tough to do, but if you can, you got a good shot at it.
And we'll have to wait one more week before SRV conference play gets off and running. Everybody in non-conference battles. Weiser will play Cole Valley Christian. That'll be a good matchup for the Wolverines. Fruitland is going to play Nampa Christian. Parma will play Marsing. And Sandpoint is going to host Homedale. So Homedale beat Sandpoint last year in Homedale. Now the Trojans got to make the return trip all the way up to Sandpoint. That will be a fantastic game to keep an eye on as well.
I think Homedale wins it again. I think they are a step above even where they were at last year, from what I've heard.
Okay, I still like Sandpoint a lot, so we'll see. They had a week off after Colville, Washington canceled on them for the 2nd year in a row. So they had an extra week to prepare. 2A football, Cole Valley Christian, Melba, and New Plymouth are all 2-1. New Plymouth has been, like, every game has been super close. They had an overtime win over an Oregon school. They had the 3-point win over Payette. They beat Nissa in overtime 26-23. I think they're just a step below right now, maybe a half step behind Cole Valley and Melba. And Melba, I mean, holy crap, 78-0 over Orofino. Their kicker was 10 for 10 on extra points.
I think I saw somewhere, like on Melba's Twitter, that it might have been in the 50s in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a mistweet or something, but yikes. I mean, they're good. I mean, they lost that one road game at North Fremont, which I don't think anybody looks at as a bad loss at all. That's a North Fremont team that's always in the mix. And you had to go over there. It's tough for any team to do. And they look to be the class right now.
Definitely. Melba plays at Nissa this week in a non-conference battle. That'll be a good test for the Mustangs, and then they'll get into conference play the week after that. Real quick, we'll touch on the 1As. There's not much to talk about here. Notice dominant, 2-1 overall. They just beat Clearwater Valley pretty badly last week on IdahoSports.com. The rest of the league just doesn't have it. Greenleaf, Rimrock, Idaho City, Wilder, all struggling. Idaho City and Wilder are both 0-3. Wilder canceled their game against Butte County this week. That was a game we were supposed to bring you on IdahoSports.com. They've got a ton of injuries. COVID's running through the program. Rimrock beat Owyhee, Nevada last week for their first win of the year. But then they pulled out. They were supposed to play Camas County this week, and they pulled out due to like low numbers and injuries and stuff. So that was puzzling to see. But it's clearly Notice's league. Logan, I've got a clip here actually.
Okay.
That I want to play. I played this on the 8-man Prepcast, but I'll play it here as well. A Rimrock fan sent this in from the Raiders' road victory at Owyhee, Nevada last Saturday. This is their quarterback/kicker, Ronaldo Gomez, and this is a 47-yard field goal in 8-man football. Think about that.
Oh, right. Yeah, let's see it.
Here's the clip.
You betcha, baby.
How cool was that?
Awesome. Hey, even I love the other team was like, wow, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a kick at any level of high school football, and to do it in 8-man, it's that's awesome. I always tell, I talk to people around, they're like, why don't they ever kick? I think it was my father-in-law once was watching a game I was doing, an 8-man game, and he's like, I can't believe they're going for 2 and they're up by 40. And it's like, that's just what they just go for 2. Nobody kicks. And so I feel like it's easier for, 9 people to block 11 than it is for 7 to block 9. The number that variation is just tougher to do, but or excuse me, I guess for 6 people to block 8, excuse me.
Right.
But impressive. That's a heck of a kick. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was wild. Okay, and then D2 level, Horseshoe Bend, I still think is the class of the league. I know Council was picked in the preseason poll, and Council most weeks has been higher or in the top 5, while Horseshoe Bend hasn't been in the coaches and media poll. Horseshoe Bend is 3-0 overall, 1-0 in conference play. So Rimrock canceled their game against Camas County. Horseshoe Bend fills in that slot, and that's actually, I think, a much better matchup.
And this is a potential semifinal matchup, and I don't think that's outrageous to say that either. Look, Kendrick is like really good. If you haven't seen them, they're very good and probably will be playing for a state championship. And so, if you're these two, I think either one of them has a shot at playing for a state championship if they're on the opposite side, right? I think you've got Horseshoe Bend, Camas County, and Dietrich and Castleford. That those 4 are really right there, neck and neck with each other, and a lot of those teams are going to play this year. So Horseshoe Bend, this is a great game, great to pick up. Love to see it happen, and not shy away from a big game like this, because they're going to get that matchup right with Camas County, and Camas County is going to play Dietrich and Castleford. So you're going to see how you match up against them, and then how other teams match up. So you're right in there. You know where you stand when it comes time for the state tournament, and how you're going to do, and maybe what worked for you in that game and didn't work for others. It'll be I think it's great to see that, and I think it should be a good game. Should be fun to watch.
Yeah, this Horseshoe Bend team, Blaine Meyer and Kalen Jones are a dynamic 1-2 duo in the backfield. Carson Drake at quarterback has been phenomenal. I guess he's an aspiring sports broadcaster. Carson Drake is somebody in his family reached out to us, and we'll have to have him on the podcast one week to talk. But yeah, Carson Drake at quarterback for Horseshoe Bend has been awesome. The most important stretch of the season for the Mustangs comes over the next 2 weeks, Logan. This Friday at Camas County, and the next Friday at Council in a game that probably decides the conference regular season title. So their most important 2-game stretches coming up here. Speaking of Council, the Lumberjacks are 2-1 on the year. Their lone loss came to Notice, which is up a level, so that's not too surprising. They had a wild game up in Nez Perce. They played Lewis County this past weekend. Did you see what happened in that game?
I saw the score, but not what happened.
All right, so the Lumberjacks are trailing, and I want to make sure I get all the info correct here. They're trailing Lewis County with less than a minute to go. They are at the goal line, 34 seconds to play. Josh Geip scores on a 1-yard run, and Council gets the lead 30-26. They kick off to Lewis County, and the kid from Lewis County, Wyatt Webb, returns the kickoff all the way to the 7-yard line. So all of a sudden, Lewis County is like, they have no timeouts or anything like that. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're at the 7. We've got a couple of shots to the end zone here. As time expires, Ty Hambley of Lewis County, who's a dynamic athlete, throws a pass into the end zone. The receiver, Noah Watson, started in the end zone, but the pass was a little bit short. So he actually had to come out of the end zone to make the catch. And then kind of like when the St. Louis Rams beat the Tennessee Titans in the Super Bowl in 2000, the Lewis County player gets tackled at like the half-yard line, and Council ends up winning as time expires. It was really wild. Lewis County's coach in the post game to the Lewiston Tribune said, "We needed 7 yards. We got 6.5." And
man, brutal. Great for Council, brutal for Lewis County. Man, that's a heck of a finish. Wish I could have seen that one. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, so what a wild game that was. Good on Council to go all the way up there to earn the road win, and
I think they're going up north again, aren't they? Aren't they going up to Kamei or something like that? They're playing a rough schedule just like Horseshoe Bend is.
Yes, Road Warriors for sure. So they have I memean, look at this. Their first 4 games have been on the road, Logan. They went and played Logos in Grangeville, a neutral site game. Then I guess they hosted Notice, but then you're right. They traveled to Nez Perce last week and they're traveling to Kamei this week. So they've already been north, 3 times in the first 4 weeks. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for them. There's also, there's another team that's just lurking there that, had been good a couple of years, lost a lot of kids, and sneakily was okay last year in Garden Valley. And I mean, they're 2-0 right now. Again, those 2 wins are against Rimrock and Idaho City, which we kind of harped on. Unfortunately, just not the best teams out there. But the way they beat them, very impressive. 76-12, 64-12. And you look at their next 2 against Timberline and Meadows Valley, they have a chance to be 4-0 heading into conference play. So, don't know how they'll do in conference, but being 4-0 can't be a bad thing, right? To be like that heading in. And I believe Tri-Valley as well has been playing better than they have in the past. They're 1-1 on the season. They also beat Idaho City, but lost to Lewis County, but didn't get blown out by Lewis County. I believe it was 34-16. So like a 3 score game, so to say. I guess that was kind of a big win, but they didn't get blown out, I'll say, which is a good indicator, right? That you were at least around in that game, that you were not out of the woods. So, so it could be a little more interesting, but I think that those 2, like we said, Council, Horseshoe Bend, definitely the class of the league.
Yes. And they will play next Friday. We'll preview that matchup on next week's edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast. We went super long, Logan, but we kind of since we missed last week, we kind of put 2 episodes and crunched it into one. So we'll be back to a normal, 20 to 30 minute podcast next week, but we had a lot to catch up on. We got a lot of great matchups on tap this week on IdahoSports.com. Specifically, Skyview will be playing Emmett. You will definitely want to tune into that one. We'll also have Bora against Mountain View in an audio broadcast as well. Logan, I'm going to let you go because I can tell your throat's really bugging you. Is it still smoky over there in the Treasure Valley?
It poured rain last night, at least in Middleton. It woke us up. I mean, it was a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning, pouring rain. And so maybe it cleared up, but yeah, my family's been pretty sick this week. So, I was supposed to do that Wilder Butte County game. And so, to be honest, it got canceled. Wasn't the worst thing for me. So, if it's not obvious, yes, I'm having a throat problems, right? It's just, I'm probably not going to be able to talk after having talked for an hour here.
Well.
Yeah.
Good.
You know how it goes. It's just one of those where if you eat anything, it's just like, that hurts going down. So who knows what it is? I feel like my kids have been sick for like a month straight, and it's super annoying, but finally got caught. Anyways, yes.
All right, we'll go get some hot tea. We will be back next week for another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast. Thanks for tuning in on IdahoSports.com.